Hello, and welcome back to the Event Modeling and Event Sourcing podcast with your hosts, Martin and Adam. Hello, Martin.
Hello, Adam. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you. It's been a while since we recorded. We've been
Yeah,
taking a bit of a looser approach in the last little bits, dealing with our own issues and in our families, particularly mine. So nice to be back and catching up. And how are things going? With the business, with the workshops? I see the webinars are always once a month, and they keep getting filled up with lots of people.
yeah. I did a lot of workshops just recently with different companies, very different domains. But the good thing is event modeling applies to all of them, so everything works. And the feedback is always the same. It's pretty interesting. They always tell me they are super surprised of how complex their systems are. When you look under the hood, oh, this is super complex. What happens there? And they weren't
Mm-hmm.
aware because you click a button and somehow it works, but nobody knows what happens under the hood. And starting with event modeling, you look at it in detail, and suddenly they realize, oh my god, what is happening there? This is crazy.
So that's really helpful fixing the problem that people complain about estimates not being reliable. It's just people just don't
Absolutely.
understand their systems. They think they understand their systems, but they really don't. And so then
This
they're
is
surprised about the because of the estimates, right?
this is the default. The default. So
Yeah.
companies which really understand their systems and how they work is really the exception, not the rule. It's really so most companies have no idea how their systems really work. With event modeling, we uncover that, but before the workshops, most of them don't know what happens.
Well, that's really good to hear because yeah, I'm constantly dealing with this question about fixed costs, and I think the two are highly dependent on one another. So yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
but
Absolutely.
yeah, it's good to see other companies reach out and all of that, and so we've over the many years had to change how we present this because of this realization that people have, and I have a good story about one person wanting to automate an entire business. I'm not going to say what type of business they might connect who it is. I don't want to talk to them behind without enough anonymity. I can't even pronounce that right now. Um, but they have this entire business, and they said, I'm overpaying my workers. Some of this stuff should be automated, and then so I asked them to describe what the business does. Where does the information go for the
Yeah.
different objectives to be met, for the information to be produced in a proper way? And event modeling basically opened their eyes to like, oh, this is why I pay my people.
Yeah.
I can just carry on because, like, all right, this is, which is sad because a lot of times, consulting companies won't do that. They'll be happy to start people off on this dream of doing all this,
Yeah.
and they'll quite happily take money away from someone chasing something where the scope is really not realized. And
Yeah.
this poor person or business or organization or people within it are going to be led down this garden path, um, and off a cliff, throwing all this effort where they can't get to a cohesive thing. So I think one of the things that I like to talk about is, starting with smaller pieces that can deliver value
Yeah.
on their own. Can you identify can you semi automate your business? Is there some smaller workflows that you can
Yeah.
automate that'll be compatible with the rest of the information flow in the organization, and or whatever it is, whatever other automations that they have, and then go from there, because it's one of those things that Agile kept talking about, but they didn't have the rigorous kind of instrumentation as part of the guidance to show, this is what it means, and these patterns are not just t-shirt sizing and how good a developer is feeling. It's explicitly showing the inherent complexity in the different things. So I think it's yeah, it's quite good. So
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, automation is a very very important thing that they came up in one of the workshops where they had a lot of manual stuff that happens. We still mapped it out as normal, so we had this whole process mapped out, and suddenly you could see, okay, look at this. This could be automated. It's not difficult to
yeah,
automate. This three manual steps. If you automate this, and we have the same result, it will be 2 days of work because it's
yeah,
really not that big. But it's clear, you see it clearly. It's very transparent what can be automated and what might be a little bit more difficult to automate. You
yeah.
see it, everything gets visible. I really like that.
Do you draw the parallels between event modeling and the value stream analysis?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I remember early on, I mean, this is probably 15 years ago, talking about event sourcing as a way, or at least the event driven approaches to kind of giving the same answers as value stream analysis. I remember having very strong objections from these people. It's almost as if they
Really? Why?
thought, yeah, I think it was because they took the time to understand what they figured was a niche skill to analyze business flow and kind of hoard that skill to themselves so that they would be at a, I don't know, they could be promoted to be a manager or a director because now they can overlook the efforts of all these developers to see if they're wasting time or not, or like pick what to work on or
Hmm.
not.
Interesting.
So I think to some people that still may be true. I don't, maybe this day and age, 15 years later, it's not looked as such a special skill. But to me, it was really like if I look at an event model, I can very quickly see the value stream analysis analogy and the equivalency of that because I know each
Yeah.
step, to change it or adjust it is replacing it, and I have numbers for how long that takes, and not only that, we now have contracts for fixed cost for implementing these. So yeah, to me, the value stream analysis is really something I don't bother pursuing. I think that might also scare off certain people from each side. I don't know if the words value stream analysis scares a developer. That's like, oh, that's too businessy. That's someone with an MBA that studied some obscure
Maybe.
course I never would have come across, and like I'm
Maybe.
kind of scared to touch it because I can't answer for this way of looking at our organization, and vice versa. You could also see that a business person might be scared of the value stream analysis um, kind of wording and skill set that I don't. I'm used to doing my job the way I was doing this, and this value stream thing seems it looks like it's a technical thing. So I see a situation where both sides might see it, value stream analysis as because especially if they haven't done it before. Oh, that must be something the other side does, and but they're saying it about each
Yeah.
other.
Oh,
So I don't know if that's true out there, but yeah, let us know in the comments on the videos if you think that if that's your assessment of value stream analysis. So I was happy. I thought my impression of value stream analysis was also this type of thing in my early on in my career. It's like, oh, these people must have some special skills to be able to do this, and it was nice to find out that that's not the truth. Just as long as it's about understanding, right? If you
yeah.
have shared understanding and everyone in your organization knows what's going on, all of these special tools and all of these other things just fall away. You don't need to have these things in place for them to be necessary, like an event, and that's why event modeling for us is the answer
Yeah.
for running projects. We just don't worry about a lot of these other things. Someone says I have a value stream analysis tool. It's like it gives me no extra value. I already know the answers it's giving me because I see them in the event model anyway.
It will give you the same information, right? You won't
Yeah,
get any different information because
yeah,
the process is the process. It doesn't change no
yeah.
matter what tool you use to document it.
It's interesting. You can overlay, like, I mean, event modeling allows you to put manual steps in there, right? Like you can totally have, this is where the paperwork happens on the shipping dock, or
Yeah,
this is where
absolutely.
this person signs a piece of paper in an insurance company to underwrite this, to give a premium for this large business building for insurance or something. I don't know. But there's definitely this idea that you have some human eyes to look at things at some point. And maybe if you're looking at it through the value stream analysis, you can say that, okay, well, this is a special person. This has to go to a director, and their pay is so much higher. So any bottleneck here is going to have a tremendous cost. Where over here we have an assembly line worker that's doing this, while their value per minute is not very high. We have 1,000 of them, right? So you can start to look at it through this lens, and like most of these other types of questions about systems, putting an overlay over, if that's really a key problem you're solving in your business, you can definitely put on an extra layer on your event model, and say, here's some tags or whatever your scheme is, to say, this is 100 hours a week at this compensation, or
Yeah.
even give it a dollar figure or a time figure or whatever your value equivalent is, to put that information on top of each slice, or maybe associated with an entire workflow at the top, then say this workflow cost is such and such. And if someone's doing some efficiency analysis, they can use the event model to kind of look at those and zoom in on one that's potentially a problem or could be improved or something else. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I mean that's basically what brings in most of the value. If you look at it, you can add as many information as you want to the event model, and it's very flexible. And oftentimes we do this. I mean, adding documentation, adding whatever works. So the event model for two different companies will most probably never look the same. So you can add as many information as you want on top of it. And that's part of why it's so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, it's interesting. Again, back to your original point about seeing in these workshops in these different companies that you've visited, that this comes up about the scope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it so fascinating because if you talk to them and here is an email that gets sent manually, and still you can model it. It's part of the process. It's so fascinating that you can model the whole process, no matter how it's implemented, no matter how it works. You can just model it out, and then you can discuss it, and suddenly everybody understands it. This is so powerful.
Yeah, it's quite interesting how focusing on the data. I mean, this ability was there all along. I just think the format of event modeling makes it more accessible, because in all the different ways that people used use cases or user stories or whatever, there was that one last step that didn't make it feel connected to the solution.
Yeah.
So people were really second guessing. Is that really what's happening in the system that I get after I write this user story? It's like, okay, sort of. But here you really get to feel it. And so that when a developer says they're done, this part of the workflow, those screens are there. And it's just that connection with the information flow is much, much more real, I think, than with other approaches. And like you said, a lot of times it's exposing the work required. So a lot of people didn't realize how much work goes on into organizing the information to flow logically and all of that. And maybe that made some bad expectations, which I think, like I said, impact this whole thing with estimates. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, but the question comes up often. Wait a second. Why is this 30 slices? There's only this small process. Why is this 30 slices large? Well, because it's not that small, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, we've made it easy, but in order for that work to happen, here's really what needs to happen underneath. And the good thing is that person that's surprised, they can have questions like, "Oh, is this necessary? Why is
Yeah.
this step there?" And all of this, and they can get logical answers, and they can have, "Oh, I see. I didn't realize this," or I thought, or they might have had another assumption that, "Oh, I thought this data was not important," or "I didn't think this was a factor in this decision," or whatever it is. But I think everyone's better off after going through these exercises. And again, one last thing in my back of my mind is always about just how much of your everyday work changes with event modeling, and in a good way, like in a very good way. I mean, you're getting way more valuable of an organization that's way more cohesive and understanding of one another. You're getting a lot more empathy, from each different person working on the project, that they realize what's going on. So I think it's people that object to event modeling. Oh, it's changing our process. Well, of course, it's improving it. How do you expect to improve without making a change? If you have very little change, you'll have very little improvement.
Yeah.
I think that's another little meme that someone said. It's like, you're saying our excellent architecture is too expensive. Well, how much do you think bad architecture is going to cost you? Right? Well, if you don't have the good architecture, you obviously are going to have the opposite. So, how expensive is that?
Yeah.
Not that this requires any crazy architectural stuff. It's just about it's more on the information side, understanding the architecture, quote unquote, of the information flow, and
Yeah.
not passing the buck too much to someone else. Like, I don't need to worry about that. It's like, well, sure, maybe don't do the work, but take the time to understand what someone else in the organization has to do. Yeah. So let's get into our first kind of official topic. Might just get to this one. I think we had a good chat about your week. My week's been kind of all over the place, waiting for contracts to get signed and all sorts of things. So business as usual for us, and yeah, which is good. So our first topic is really the one of the rants that the famous Uncle Bob Martin has posted. I think it's well known that I don't particularly share his views on software development, from him being a little bit more traditional in terms of using either functional or object oriented, or doesn't matter what, but I think it's mostly object oriented, dry, solid principles, which
Yeah.
I think we've continually shown the shortcomings of that mindset and information management, or where you don't have a lot of isolation of work and autonomy for getting your work done. You do have too many relationships within the system causing side effects, right? So we kind of went over that multiple times. And so this is surprising for me to find this rant of his against SQL kind of interesting.
In the
And
bathrobe, right? In the bathrobe.
yeah, I guess it's a new shtick. He's got a bathrobe. If you want to see an old man in a bathrobe, for sure. Not that I'm young anymore, but I'm not going to put on a bathrobe. But um, yeah, so it's this series where he has a take on the industry, and I think he picked on a good one this time. And so, like anytime you have to agree with someone you generally disagree with, you can say the clock is a broken clock is always right twice a day. So I guess this is one of those times. And I think his main argument against SQL is that it's a language that was developed in the late 60s or whatever for doing bespoke reports by a person that understands that SQL syntax on a terminal, which is not kind of how that same language ended up being used, which was the interface to the database by programs. In other words, his critique is that this is not an official programming language, and it sucks to be programming in something that is not meant to be used for programming. And I agree with that. And I think we saw a lot of this with the popularization of NoSQL databases, Mongo being used instead of a database, and all of these startups back in the hype days of like when Ruby was really getting its Ruby on Rails, not Ruby itself, but Ruby on Rails. And the coffee shop coder on a MacBook in the Starbucks hacking away on a startup, being all cool. That was kind of this. I can go fast, and it kind of was what Uncle Bob was talking about here. They didn't like having to deal with SQL because hey, I just need this record. Why can't I just store this JSON blob and just retrieve it whenever I need it again?
Yeah.
Fair enough. That's a good use. The problem with that is that the majority of the mindset out there is this kind of canonical data model. So even though you're using Mongo, you're trying to cram in separate pieces. So, and event sourcing was sort of bubbling away behind the scenes, right there, because I mean, go back to 2005. That was when the idea kind of got put in people's heads with Martin Fowler's original article talking about this approach. Um, so I don't know. That's the one prong here, is the SQL language being ugly. Um, the other thing is, I think part of the rant. If you just look at Uncle Bob's post, you'll see it. It got quite a lot of attention, um, and that's Robert C. Martin, and I think he only does them on X or Twitter, as it used to be called. So you can see it.
What is it that you think happens inside of a SQL database when it receives a SQL string? Well, it compiles it down into an internal representation, a data representation, and then uses a set of function calls to interpret that data representation to access the data, period. And that data representation and those function calls are what we programmers should be using to access data. We should not be using some bloated old arcane syntax invented 50 years ago for people typing at a teletype.
And I think the other thing that he mentions is like, do you know what happens underneath the hood when you use a database? And that's something that's important to us in the event sourcing world,
Yeah.
because we kind of expose the log, which is how databases work, as the event sourcing, streams, right? The events, the stream, the events and the streams themselves. It's
Yeah.
very similar or probably identical to the way a database has, this transaction log and this log shipping to take care of scalability with multiple instances and all this kind of stuff. So that's he touches on why we see so many advantages in event sourcing, because we don't hide that. We take advantage of that, of the methods that a database uses to keep itself consistent and make sense of what happened when, is what we internalize at the business level and say that, this doesn't have to be a technical thing. This actually works really well. It's very much like accounting, and we can use that. So that's kind of the other side of it, in this argument. I don't know. You only were able to watch the clip just before we started
Yeah,
recording.
yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on the man in the bathrobe?
I mean, I left Twitter or X a few months ago. I'm not there. I'm not following anyone, so I really didn't see it just like before this podcast. But what I see is how much harm can be done using SQL, because most projects I'm involved with, they are some kind of integration projects where you integrate a lot of systems, and almost often the root of most of the problems is the database triggers that tie everything together. So you have these database triggers, you have these huge gigantic SQL scripts that do something, but nobody knows what they do. So, I mean, I'm not sure if I really agree with SQL being an ugly language. If you use it right, you can do it. It can be useful, but most of the time, it really is so harmful, because many developers simply don't understand how to use it, and many developers simply put in too much information into this, and basically everything is driven by SQL in most systems I'm involved with. So it's really hard to keep this maintainable.
I think it was quite evident to people that were, ironically, I mean, I can see why Uncle Martin has this, Uncle Bob. Sorry, I keep mixing up his pseudonym here.
Yeah.
I can sort of see why he would jump on this criticism of it, because most of the unit testing and TDD community heavily relies on refactoring. And when
Yeah.
you look at the refactoring tools like ReSharper, IntelliJ, extract method, and promote, promote variable to parameter. All of these refactorings were crucial to do TDD effectively over the last couple of decades.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a thorn in the side when some of the functionality and the business logic or business or at least invariants are locked into the database part. And when you're in SQL, you don't have this extract method. You don't have this. You're programming, but you're programming in a much different way, where the
Yeah.
tooling really wasn't on the same level. So it's almost as if you drop down to the data storage concerns and programming types. You were left without the tools that you were promoted to use from these things to really keep the
Yeah.
solution nice and the code readable and all of these things that we used to think were important. So, and to those that are going to be critical of what I just said, yeah, we don't really read code anymore. We read the event model, and the slices get implemented once and they don't get revisited. If it's working, it's working. We don't go revisit that code.
Yeah.
Because this ties it back to this multiple model approach. And so I think with this rant, it's sort of, I wish he went the extra next jump to say that, yeah, event sourcing would be a better default for everything else, and to show that multiple models would be better. But I think there's too much at stake given the books he's written.
I'm not sure. Do you know, is he involved in event sourcing? Did he ever talk about event sourcing?
No,
I'm not sure. I have no idea.
I think he's had opinions on it, but no, I think. I mean, we have people that, like, for example, the Ruby on Rails community with the book Shape Up. We've had some good crossover because event modeling really does go hand in hand with, like, hey, first understand what you're going to build. That this two-phase sort of approach that Shape Up gives
Yeah.
is really the understanding side and shaping of your solution, or framing. I think it's called framing. So the framing is like, event modeling is built, almost purpose built for the framing part of the Shape Up book. So Ryan Singer was quite nice to join us in the workshop, the conference last year in Vancouver. He joined remotely, but it was at the Vancouver conference last year, and was quite happy with it. But he comes from the DHH Ruby on Rails guy crowd, and the Hey.com and all this. And I mean, there's been a lot of progress of bucking the trend of traditionalist stuff. I mean, DHH has dumped the cloud stuff to go back on-prem and save millions and millions of dollars,
Yeah.
exposing just how much of a ripoff cloud solutions are. That he can very easily have better reliability by having his own hardware to run all this, and for fractions of the cost that it would take in the cloud, which was good. And then, so needless to say, and of course he's switched everything, threw away all the MacBooks and went full Linux as well, which is crazy, which is great. That's another thing that bucks the trend and continues to do that. So there's people that are doing the better thing despite of what the popular thing is all the time. And I think that DHH and the Ruby on Rails community would be ones that would say, hey, you know what, this like forms over data over the SQL thing, or over this MongoDB thing. Well, let's take one more step and let's go over the events themselves. If I actually, take what part of their own community of effort invited, because they really liked event modeling for that first framing part. So we're almost there, right? The connections are almost happening, and it seems like the industry really needs to suffer a lot before it's willing to make a big change. And I think the big I think the AI efforts now with the vibe coding is really exposing that too, because you're hitting that wall of like nothing works all of a sudden. Like, it was really easy to vibe code my way to get this thing to do this much, but somehow this like 10th feature, it's like whack-a-mole now. It's either I have this feature, this new feature, and these other two stop working the way I wanted them, and then you're like, oh, it boils down to not allowing the hallucinations to be the truth because, oh, I didn't care how it did this part, but it's working, so whatever. That, but now I've internalized that as a specification because that's what it hallucinated. So now when I add this other part, this initial one gets thrown away or changed significantly because it
Yeah.
wasn't what I said was important. So there's a lot of these weird parallels that are happening. So again, I think AI is a good disruptor, but I think we already had a disruptor um, with going hybrid cloud or no cloud, going back to on-prem because that got crazy, um, and yeah, so I don't know what's your feeling on this.
Uh, I'm currently reading a book, and I think that's a pretty good match. The book is named 10 times is easier than 2 times, or something
Okay.
like that. So it talks about if you want to make a jump, then make a big jump. It's far easier to make a very big jump than to make a small jump. And the basic theory behind it is just what he says. I can't remember the author. I just started reading it, but he says if you want to make this big jump, you just need to focus on 20% of what you're currently doing, and the important 20%, basically the Pareto principle. And to be able to make this big jump, you have to get rid of 80% of what you're currently doing. And
Yeah.
maybe that is what's currently happening. Maybe we are getting rid of
Yeah,
many of
it's
many
definitely
of the old stuff.
paradigm shifts, right? It's a
Yeah,
lot of it is paradigm shifts. I think AI is a paradigm shift simply because the amount uh, certain tasks have been trivialized, and to me, it's trivialized research. I mean, the amount of time I would spend in an evening exploring a new framework to be able to do something in it is entirely erased. These are things that I can do within minutes,
yeah,
and maybe an hour, where I would waste multiple evenings pouring through reading. It's essentially to me looking like I can a session of chasing something on Google, following links, putting alternate search terms to actually get a good example, to understand something, and then go and try it. That's now totally shrunk to a very,
yeah.
very, very tight loop. It's an order of
Basically gone.
magnitude
Basically gone.
efficiency.
Yeah,
So, but also, I think this 10 versus 2 step progress is very similar to what we've been discussing with a paradigm shift. If you're using a single model, like most applications do, it's the canonical model of the database, user table, orders table, blah blah. In event sourcing, we don't have that. We have just what happens as an event in the system, and then we make multiple of these little islands of relationships called projections,
yeah,
which really have this. The reason that works is because you can't really argue with the facts being written down as they happen. So, but now you have these different things. That is a paradigm shift in terms of how you deal with information in your system.
yeah,
And I always think of, well, everything that you have in the industry is for you to be very effective with managing this one single canonical model, which has problems, significant problems on a lot of sides, because you're just trying to stuff too much into one thing, try to make this good enough for 1,000 different purposes.
yeah,
So, and so when you move away entirely from that to say, I on purpose will not have a single model, I on purpose will have as many models as I need, the
yeah,
total 180-degree turn in attitude. And so, in order for us to be most effective at doing that, requires a whole different set of skills. But there's some overlap, but there's definitely new skills involved that people are not familiar with to do that. So that this is this local maxima, right? You were kind of effective here, and to get to the top of the efficiency here, you got to do more unit tests, do less, do fewer integration tests, do this,
yeah,
do that. There's this mindset here. But now if you want to get to this local maxima here, you get way more efficiency. Like, you have estimates you can reliably do. You have no increasing costs for features. But you have to remember, it's a local maxima, right? So you have a valley in here. So where did
yeah,
2 steps take you? They put you in the valley, right? You're never going to realize the benefits of this approach if you just take 2 steps.
Yeah.
You need the whole 10 steps to be here.
Yeah.
If you say like, oh, hey, we're having a horrible time adopting event modeling and event sourcing. We've made attempts to introduce it little by little to all the teams, and everyone's having pain and it's horrible. It's like, yeah, because you took only 2 steps. You're still relying on your old database, or you're still relying on sharing your read models because you're still doing coupling in your data. You're still doing dry. You're still trying to reuse stuff. You're still allergic to copy and pasting things that worked, so that you have decoupled and made certain things autonomous. While the full 10 steps is, okay, I'm going to do the things that feel wrong. It's, there's so many different parallels to this,
Yeah.
And a lot of it is fear driven. If you've ever invested, and especially the last time, like the last few months here, last couple of months, like if you're investing and you're like, oh, everyone's running for the hills, everyone's selling everything, the prices are lower, I got to get out, I'm going to lose all my money. Someone that lives in the world of investing will know that that is the perfect time to buy, when everyone is screaming.
Yeah.
And they'll get
most people
it's
don't.
the same
Most
thing.
people don't.
It's the same thing here. Like, oh my god, I don't have my database. That's the source of truth. It's like, you have something better. Don't be afraid of the fact that you have these events that no one can argue with. That's beautiful. That's something that you should be very happy you have in your system. It's something that is, for once, not subjective. Think of all the good things you can grow from something that is undisputed, that can't be disputed by anyone, because
Yeah.
that person submitted that information in that form at that time, right? And so anyway, interesting sort of discussion today, all over the place. But I like these because we can explore
Yeah. Absolutely.
different things going through our heads, and maybe people find this interesting because one thing I noticed about myself in terms of how I look at work and what I do every day, how different it is than what it used to be when I was starting out, and then not even just as starting out, but like as a successful consultant, and having enough experience in the industry. What is it that now makes me happy with what I'm producing? And that's the idea that I've devoted myself to only doing this to explore areas that would never have the time to explore before. So having the whole company just doing event sourcing and just doing event modeling has allowed me to personally try these concepts, like these DCB, dynamic consistency boundary concepts, doing indexing myself, all of these different things, but also seeing it through people that are working in the company, for how they have done that. Our CTO, how he's built the entire frameworks for event sourcing solutions. It's nice to have a better view of what that 10-step leap is, and
Yeah.
give the best account of what it's like on that next hill over, right? For you to then be able to do the leap yourself is
Yeah.
important, to have people like yourself, like Jake, like all these other people that have gone out and basically said, I agree, this is a better way, and I'm happy to only work this way if it's possible for me. So now I see this as like a community kind of approach, where we together, all of us on Discord and other places, can help others that want to make the leap. And it's nice to not just have myself do this.
And I really think the adopting event modeling can be a 10 times leap for a company. So I've seen this a lot of times, and I really like the idea of having this valley in between. So if you only make these 2 steps, you land in the valley. So you need to do the whole thing to get this 10 times leap. But
Yeah.
if you make this, it's really you're 10 times better than before. And that's really, I like this approach a lot.
Yeah. And I think you've seen it at a few. We're not going to mention company names, but I think you know the one I'm talking about. That yeah, when you try to kind of do it lukewarm, little by little, it does have this feeling of this only two steps, and that can be very negative. Um, so I think what I'm trying to get to as well is that while the statement seems extreme, you have to do 10. How does an organization do a 10-step jump? You
Yeah,
don't do it across everything. You do it within a component, a team, especially a team, because that applies Conway's law into the equation and things like that. That, hey, if I have this one team that's looking after, I don't know, shipping of our products, and they have their own subsystem they work on for shipping, and they're the ones that are wanting to move to better things. Maybe they have some issues that would be solved by having a better understanding of the system, and therefore event sourcing and event modeling makes sense for them to adopt, and they all agree. Then do it with that department. Make that department do the 10-step jump
yeah,
and not the rest. Others will follow, but like this is, there's very few companies that can, non-trivial size companies, that can say everybody's moving to event sourcing and event modeling. And if you can do it, awesome. I mean, you're going to be ahead of your competitors probably, but you're dealing with so many different personalities, so many different people. So that's usually
yeah,
not going to happen.
yeah.
I like change for anything. All the other stuff that we discussed with Ruby on Rails and going, against the cloud and all these other things. Most companies can't do those things right away. You do them incrementally, department by department, probably.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a nice shorter episode. I think
we are under an hour. That
for
it's
the
been
first
quite a
time in a
while.
long time, which is great. Okay. Well, so look, I'm not going to make any timely announcements, but keep checking the website, eventmodeling.org, for the links. The book, of course, Martin has that new chapter in
Yeah,
it.
it's
So
back in the top 10, by the way.
yeah, I'm not surprised. I expect it to always be in the top 10. I don't see how people can overlook this book as an integral part of their reading material and reference material. If you're in automating systems, not just programming, but even running a company that has software development in it, whether it's internal or you externalize it, this book is key. So
I have a fun exercise I do every morning. I pick
okay,
one person. I search for event sourcing on
yep.
LinkedIn. I pick one person I don't know yet, and I just write the person, hey, what's going on? How are you? And the assumption is he's right back. Most people write back, hey, Martin, I'm just reading your book.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm very, very happy about that. So look for I should probably do that with event modeling anyway.
Yeah.
So happy to have had a shorter episode. This is
Yeah.
wonderful. I hope you have a wonderful week, very productive
you?
week. And if you're on the Discord server for event modeling, you will definitely have someone, if not myself or Martin. Martin, you've been very active lately, which is great.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the help. So you can get us on there, and also the incredible community of other practitioners that can help you out. So, and then eventmodeling.org has the links for everything, including Martin's company, my company, and other resources for you. So, but definitely get the book too. If you're wondering why it's still in the top 10 after, was it 6 months now, 8 months? I don't know what it's been. 6 months
October,
probably.
5,
7
6.
months probably.
Yeah,
I think it's 7 months. Yeah. So congratulations on this amazing book. I have one copy left, which is signed. I gotta order more because I have to give away more.
I'm the Como camp is happening this week, so I'm at Como camp 3 days, and I bought a whole bunch of books.
Awesome.
I have a full bag of books just to give away for free at the Como camp.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think people will really appreciate it, and that'd be really, really nice for them to have that. So, all right, Martin. Well, have fun there, and we'll record if you have time on Sunday at the conference or the next day.
Yeah.
We'll coordinate together. So again,
All
thanks
right.
for your time. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll
You
see you
too.
next time.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.